good morning and welcome to another Monday going through the book of Acts. I'm stood in my bedroom looking out at the most beautiful scenery of snow and the tops of trees and a beautiful blue sky. How gorgeous is that? But today we are reading from Acts chapter 24 verses 14 to 27. And once again, for another week, we find Paul mid-flow. Mid-flow in a huge speech and giving his testimony as he's on trial before Felix. Once again before Ananias and a whole other group of dignitaries. So let's pick up in the middle of this amazing speech. Verse 14 of chapter 24 in Acts. However, I admit that I worship the God of our ancestors and as a follower of the way, which they call a sect. I believe everything that is in accordance with the law and that is written in the prophets. And I have the same hope in God as these men themselves have. Wow. That there will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. So I strive always to keep my conscience clear before God and man. After an absence of several years, I came to Jerusalem to bring my people gifts for the poor and to present offerings. I was ceremonially clean when they found me in the temple courts doing this. There was no crowd with me, nor was I involved in any disturbance. But there are some Jews from the province of Asia who ought to be here before you and bring charges if they have anything against me. Or these who are here should state what crime they found in me when I stood before the Sanhedrin, unless it was this one thing, I shouted as I stood in their presence. It is concerning the resurrection of the dead that I am on trial before you today. Then Felix, who was well acquainted with the way, that is Christians, adjourned the proceedings. When Lysias, the commander, comes, he said, I will decide your case. He ordered the centurion to keep Paul under guard, but to give him some freedom and permit his friends to take care of his needs. Several days later, Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was Jewish. He sent for Paul and listened to him as he spoke about faith in Christ Jesus. As Paul talked about righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, Felix was afraid and said, That's enough for now. You may leave. When I find it convenient, I will send for you. At the same time, he was hoping that Paul would offer him a bribe, so he sent for him frequently and talked with him. When 2 years had passed, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus. But because Felix wanted to grant favour to the Jews, he left Paul in prison. Wow, what a reading. What are we going to glean from this morning? Well, once again, we see the lovely Paul stood before Ananias, Felix, and other dignitaries, giving an account and sharing his testimony, taking whatever opportunity God gives to him. But sooner rather than later, Paul knows this, that he is going to be stood, given an account before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. This gathering, however intimidating it may seem to him or would seem to us, meant far less to him than standing in the awesome presence of God. And this is clear because of the verses in verse 15 and 16. There will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. And so I strive always to keep my conscience clear before God and man, because he knows sooner rather than later he is going to be stood before God himself, the maker of heaven and earth. He keeps a clear conscience before him. He strives to, and before man. But are you like me? Do you ever wonder why God allowed the impact of Paul's ministry to be hindered by so much time spent in prison, by being incarcerated, by finding himself stood before all these different dignitaries at different points, giving an account to all sorts of leaders, the leaders of the day? Do you wonder? Well, for me, I wonder, could it be this? That God had positioned him in these places on purpose. Because had he not found himself in prison, had he not found himself on trial, there's a really strong possibility that these leaders, these dignitaries, these highfalutin people would never have come under the sound of the gospel, of the good news of Jesus Christ. It might never have happened. And maybe only Paul could speak with such eloquence because of his background, because of his history, because he was known. That one minute he's killing Christians, we said it last week, one minute he is out chasing them down, hounding them, but the next minute he's one of them. Who else could speak so brilliantly in front of this crowd? Because this crowd surely must be wondering, what's going on? Has he gone mad? And then they find out that he's not. Repeatedly we see Paul giving an impactful account and of his testimony. His testimony is incredible. There's no denying it. How he met the risen Lord Jesus. But we also read this, that Felix frequently called on Peter, invited, well, probably didn't invite, he probably ordered Paul to come and talk to him. But Paul, we read, never misses an opportunity. What a huge lesson. But what we see, I wonder, this is what I thought when I read those last few verses about Felix calling on Paul to talk to him. Was Felix's heart under some conviction? Was his heart in a tug of war of should he, shouldn't he? Do I believe this? Do I not? Was there something being stirred within him? We might never know. But I want to just quickly turn to Isaiah. Because as I was reading this and thinking about Paul being in prison and all these things that sometimes don't make sense, and this also happens to us in our lives, sometimes things don't make sense, why we're positioned where we're positioned, why things have happened the way they have. It could be our fault, who knows, but why? Why are we in lockdown? Why are these things happening? And what opportunities is God placing in our way? What is he positioning us for now and for the future? But Isaiah 55:8 says this, going on to into verse 11 as well. God says this through Isaiah. And remember in our reading, Paul said, I believe the words of the prophets. And here's one of them saying this. For my thoughts, says God, are not your thoughts. Neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. We may never understand why Paul was positioned where he was, but I think we see more clearly day by day what's really going on here, that God hasn't lost control of the situation in Paul's life. He's in full control and he knows exactly what he's doing. And my friends, this morning I want to encourage you that it's the same for you as it is for me. God's in control and his ways are not our ways. We might not make sense of things right now, but take heart. God knows what he's doing. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and do not return to it without watering the earth, and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. You think of that in context of our friend Paul, that God had positioned him to sow seed in places that may never have received it had Paul not been there. So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty. Paul was a vessel, as we've said many times before. Paul was a vessel. And as God spoke through him, seed was being sown. You and I are vessels. If we put ourselves in God's hands and allow him to speak through us, for seed to be sown. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire. I love that. God positioned Paul in a place where he could accomplish what he desired. It might not have been what Paul wanted, but it's what God desires. And it will achieve the purpose for which I sent it. Imagine thinking of it this way, that actually Paul was sent to prison, was allowed to go to prison by God. He was sent, he was on mission, whether he was in freedom to go wherever he wanted, whether he was traveling to all different parts of the world, or whether he was confined to a prison cell or to a room in a house, whatever it was, stood before Felix and Ananias, Paul was on mission. Wherever you are today, wherever you go today or this week, you are on mission. But I also remembered this, that in Genesis chapter 50 and verse 20, I want to just leave you with this thought. And we see Joseph. We see Joseph now a dignitary, after facing prison, being a slave and all kinds of things, now second in command in Egypt. Now we see him confronting his brothers and giving an account to them. And he says this: you intended, my brothers, to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. That hit me this morning. That hit me, that last sentence, the saving of many lives. Satan was probably rubbing his little old cheeky hands together when he saw this incredible pocket rocket called Paul in prison. I've shut him up. His mouth is closed. He's unable to preach. He's unable to do anything. But you see, what the enemy had meant for harm, God intended it for good. Paul was not silenced. He was not shut up. He was physically shut up, but his mouth wasn't. His hands weren't, because we know that we have all these incredible letters that he wrote to all these different people, to all these different principalities, the Thessalonians, the Philippians, the Ephesians, and so on, Galatians, all these people. We've got all these letters that still impact us, that still sow seed in us today. Isn't that incredible? Paul was not shut up and he was not shut out. He was not incarcerated for bad, but for good. And we feast of his writings, of his heart today. I want to encourage you that in your life, whatever the enemy has meant for harm, God can turn it round for his good and for his purposes, for his good purposes. And what is this last part? To accomplish what is now being done, to accomplish what will be done today and in the future, and in the future. And what is that? The whole purpose of who we are and what we are is this last line, the saving of many lives. We are in the life-saving business, saving people from sin. We don't actually save them, but our testimony, like Paul's testimony, is to save people's lives, to open their lives up to all God is and to all, all God has for them. Because one day, as Paul said in Acts 24, one day he, along with us, will stand before God. The resurrection of the living and the dead is coming, and where we will give an account, and we will stand. I found this in my Bible. It's something that I cut out of a magazine. I don't know if you probably won't get the full impact of it. Look at the heavens. The one who created all that, and the one who created this incredible scene outside my bedroom window today, the crunchy, gorgeous snow and the beautiful trees and the sky, the one who created all of that, we are going to stand before him. So we're possible. Have a clear conscience, as Paul said, before God and before man. Have an incredible day. Have a life-saving week. Whoever you stand before, be prepared to give an account for the faith for which we believe. And remember that the things that the enemy intended for good, God intended it that the enemy intended for bad, God can use it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Exciting, isn't it? Have a really good day. Take care, keep safe, and see you again next week. Bye.